Dante wrote, "The path to paradise begins in hell." Join Deacon Don Prendergast and David Fortin as they discuss the tools men need to build the domestic church and the spiritual weapons to defend it. This is Through the Fire.
All right, Deacon, we are back. And hey, you got an event coming up at your parish. You want to tell people
I do, absolutely. So, there's this event that's coming up in October and November called Catholics Returning Home. And this is an important event. I mean, the church, here's the bottom line. The church has always and will always be seeking to evangelize. But sometimes the ones that we need to evangelize are the ones that are already Catholics. And we also need to be aware of, and we're talking about AI today, and we need to be aware of the various influences that society would put on somebody that may pull them away from getting back to attending church, attending the Mass. And so my parish over in St. Anne's Parish in Florida, DeBary, Florida, they're putting together this program called Catholics Returning Home, an invitation for non-practicing Catholics. Dave, did you know that probably the biggest denomination of Christians are former Catholics?
Really?
Yeah. And so there's 100 different reasons.
Sad.
I mean, there's tons of reasons why someone may have chosen to leave the Catholic faith. But whatever your reasons are, we want to have an opportunity to talk about it. And so beginning on October 16th, we're going to have our program, Catholics Returning Home. And what I would like to do is I would like to invite anyone that's in the Central Florida area to get involved in this program. All inactive Catholics are cordially invited to participate in this program, as well as active Catholics. I mean, if you want to come and participate and then bring this message to others, we certainly would invite that also. You are welcomed, you are loved, and you are missed. And for additional details, please call 386-668-8270, 386-668-8270. That's the Catholics Returning Home program. We're going to have it in St. Anne's Catholic Church in DeBary, Florida, and we'd love to have you come and join us.
I hope you have a good turnout at that, Deacon.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. Hey, let's get back to what we were talking about. Deacon, I know some people that are using AI as a counselor, as a tool to benefit themselves. It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. I think that's dangerous.
Well, I mean, not just that. People are actually starting to have relationships, personal relationships with these AI.
So that's going over the cliff. I mean, that's the ultimate horrible ending. Let's go back in time. So there was an argument that was made many, many, many years ago when the television was created. And I don't know if you had one of these TVs that was on a TV cart that would get wheeled out into the living room and wheeled away. And, back in the 50s and whatnot, there was this whole push, this new media platform of television. And, I even heard a Catholic speaker talk about that word, the word television, to tell a vision. And, it's really interesting if you think about that, because you are subjecting yourself in that regard to someone else's vision that they're telling you. And so the argument when the television was first invented was that it's going to drive people away from each other. And no, it's not. It's going to bring families together. Well, here's the thing. Before the television, I would love to see some data on this, but before the television, what did people do? They sat on their front porch. They played in the front yard. They got together with neighbors. And so you got the television and moved people from outside to inside. It moved people from the front yard inside. And so then, we make a big deal about backyard barbecues. You're still not in the front yard with your community. Now let's fast forward, and now we get to the home computer. Oh, that's going to revolutionize. You're going to be able to communicate with people all over the world. Really? Okay. Has anybody taken a look at the destruction and the readily available pornography that's on the internet that children have access to, that adults have access to. I've got dear friends of mine who are, mature adults, and they've been battling internet pornography for years, trying to get away from it. It's just so incredibly destructive. Then we have the creation of the cell phone, right? Okay, starts off fantastic, no problem. I had one of those Starlink little tiny flip phones that I used to carry around. I never had a BlackBerry, but that was the next creation, right? You had the Blackberries that then became the little pocket computers, and the next thing you know, you got smartphones. And so you have now a generation of people growing up on smartphones where they're walking around with their head inside their smartphone like the zombie apocalypse. Technology can be wonderful. It could also push people into isolation. And so now, Dave, as you're saying, we're now seeing individuals who are really pushing themselves into isolation and having intimate relationships with AI infused life-size mechanical dolls. I mean, there are companies out there that are producing life-size mannequin type of robotic dolls, male and female, and they're putting AI computer software inside of it. And now you have individuals that the relationship that they should have with a spouse, they're now having that relationship with a computer generated AI programmed life-size robotic doll. How can that, where can you find in that anything that is godly? Where can you find in that anything that you can argue that it is just as good as having a human encounter? I don't see it. And sadly, there are too many people that think, hey, man, this is fantastic.
All these machines are not created with, they're eventually going to learn self-preservation, and they may not ever understand sacrifice.
They have no soul. There's
Right.
no soul.
And that's
The machines are not, the machines are, I do believe this, they are made in the image and likeness of God. The question is, what God? Certainly not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
right. Exactly.
Whatever you find most important in your personal life, that is your God.
I don't want us to come off as if we're two old guys just sitting in these rooms and bashing technology and not being able to move forward. There's got to be a way to use this stuff properly.
Well, sure. I mean, it says in Scripture, just because something is lawful doesn't mean that it's good for you. Just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you should be doing a thing. This is why the church has a very firm stance, and we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, the 5 non-negotiables. One of the 5 non-negotiables is human cloning. So I see this as an attempt to enter into a kind of human cloning, because there is no soul here. It's a mechanical robot, or it's it's a computer's program. You cannot replace the human encounter with a mechanical encounter and expect to have the same outcome. You just can't do it. It's not that having the mechanical assistance is not a good thing. Having a mechanical assistance is a good thing. Technology is a good thing, but it can't replace the human person. It can't replace the human spirit. It never will. It never will replace humanity. And that's my personal fear, is that there are people that think that it can just as easily replace humanity.
Do you think that AI and this technology is amplifying the depravity of man?
Well, it certainly can. So let's do this. So when we were in the previous segment, I kind of teased the audience that we were going to take a look at AI and ask some questions. So during the break, I went on to DuckDuckGo, which has an AI feature. And I asked a very simple question. I asked the question, is AI evil? Very simple question. Here's what I got. The question of whether AI is evil is complex and often depends on how it is used and the intentions behind its development. Here are some key points to consider. Human intent. AI itself does not possess intentions or emotions. It operates based on algorithms and data provided by humans. If used for harmful purposes, it can lead to negative outcomes. Well, this goes back to what we were saying earlier is who is making the decisions, just like the difference in the search engines between, Google Chrome and Safari and, all these other different search engines, they're not going to give you identical results. So right there is a red flag. It also goes on to say ethical design. Developers can create AI systems with ethical guidelines to promote positive uses, such as improving healthcare, enhancing education, or addressing climate change. Ethical designs, okay, based on what truth? Because, we've seen this in society all over the place. My body, my choice, right? Who's making the ethical decisions? Who's deciding what is morally corrupt and what is not? So that's a big concern also because that's a point of manipulation. And then it also goes on to say potential risk, biases and discriminations. AI systems can perpetrate or amplify biases present in their training data, leading to unfair treatment of certain groups. The use of AI in military application raises ethical concerns about decision-making in warfare. AI can be used to infringe on privacy rights through surveillance and data collection. This is why AI is a concern. And I think this is why Pope Leo XIV is beginning the process of really, really addressing it. Who's going to be overseeing? Who's writing the algorithm? Who's inputting the moral, ethical guidelines? Where are they getting their moral and ethical guidelines from? Are they getting it from a source that basically looks at abortion as an individual's choice, or are they looking at it from the perspective of all human life is precious? I'm thinking about a couple of movies that we grew up with. So is AI like HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the astronaut, I don't remember the character's name, but he's trying to shut HAL down, and HAL is having an emotional moment? Or is it going to be like Skynet from the Terminator, where it's like, no, survival. Now we're going to find that these biologicals, humans, are the enemy, and we're going to go to war against them in order to survive, in order to sustain our existence. Is AI going to ultimately result in the Matrix, where human beings are converted into batteries to power the machine, to power, it sounds very, very far-fetched. Okay, maybe it sounds far-fetched today, but all of this begins with over-dependency on a machine. It begins with over-dependency on technology, not to provide information, but to make decisions. And so I see that as being the big difference. And I hope that Pope Leo XIV is going to really, really focus on that, because that's what I see as being, really key, as we look at our own lives and as we start to see differences in our employment and the different aspects. Dave, we started the show off today. We started the show with that AI generated voice that did the opening. And I know you've used AI to illustrate this point in other aspects of radio recording. How difficult would it be to duplicate my voice and to create a whole monologue of something that is 100% contrary to Catholic teaching? How difficult would it be to do that?
Simple. It's so simple. And that's what I mean. Years ago, we were drinking out of a garden hose of technology. Today, it's a fire hose. And I could create, your friend, Nancy Robles, who does all our...
the digital stuff.
She's created some pretty good stuff. But I mean, they could even do you, just take a picture of you, and you could become a heretic overnight.
Right.
Just
I mean,
because.
I've heard stories of that. I've heard stories also about teenage girls in high school, somebody using AI to create videos of teenage girls in high school that are, disrobed and doing in doing vulgar and embarrassing things, and then it goes up on the internet, and now they're battling for their reputation like crazy. And talk about cyberbullying, it takes it to a whole new level.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
it's
mean, it seems so insidious. And that's my concern is what's to prevent it from becoming insidious?
only our choice makes it that way. We can choose to do good with the internet. We and AI. We can choose to do evil with it. I mean, you look at this show. This show is on the internet. We do it via the internet,
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, we're on some great radio stations. Hey, and by the way, I want to say hello to my friend Richard at St. Rose Radio. We just had a nice conversation with him. Yeah, we have the choice to use this stuff ethically and morally, but we have to be the ones that make that final decision, not the AI.
Well, this is why it's so important for us to stay close to the church. I'm really, really happy that Cardinal Dolan had put forth the instructions to us that we have to stay close to the original books. One of the things that I love having an extensive library. One of these days, maybe we'll do a walk through the various books that I have on the shelf in my library. But, it's so important to have original material. It's so important to be able to reference original material. I mean, I have the collection of the Summa Theologica. I have St. Augustine's Confessions. I have a lot of stuff. Mother Teresa, her writings. I have a lot of stuff that I step into and I'll refer back to. Now, I'm not a Puritan. I'm not I don't want anybody to think that, I'm anti-technology. Here's the way I use technology quite often. I'll have in my mind a Bible verse, but I can't remember exactly where it is in the Bible. I might think it's in this book, it's in that letter, but I'm not 100% sure. So to give me kind of a shortcut, if you will, I'll type in the verse and then I'll see what pops up. And if it says, okay, well, it's in John's Gospel or it's in the book of Sirach or it's in Isaiah, and then I'll go to my Bible and I'll open up the Bible. It's like, okay, there it is. That's how I use it. I don't use it blindly. And I strongly recommend that nobody uses technology blindly because then you also run into the problem of translations. How difficult could it possibly be for someone who has a nefarious or maleficent kind of attitude? How difficult would it be for someone to upload a document and make changes in the document? And you're never going to know.
Yeah. One of the things Deacon and I wanted to say was we need to trust but verify. I want to make sure we leave this episode with some suggestions, some tools.
Yes, we certainly will.
That the guys, and one thing I really think we should do is trust but verify. Make sure that the information that we're getting off of the internet from AI is valid. Do some fact checking.
Absolutely. So let's touch on that by going into scripture. I want to read from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, beginning with verse 24. And this is the story of the two houses. And this is why I think it's so important, like you said, to verify. It says here in the Gospel, everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his home on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house. But it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock. And everyone who listens to these words of mine but does not act on them will be like a fool who built his house on sand. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was completely ruined. Dave, it does not say in Scripture if the rains come, if the wind comes. It says when. because AI could be a destructive storm. But I think you're 100% right. I think, if we understand that we use technology to gain information, but then we make decisions based upon solid, known truth. And so, whatever we do with AI going forward, we have to have it verified as being reliable. Everyone listening to this program, I can't urge you enough to develop your own home library. Make sure you have real documents, make sure you have real writings that are going to give you the truth. Because, like I said, AI is fine, the internet is fine, technology is fine in order to gain information, but you got to back it up with truth.
Let's talk about the curse of Adam and AI.
Yeah, so we talked about this once before. So the curse of Adam, as we know, is a two-part curse. The first part is effeminacy. The second part is irresponsibility. And so this goes back to also, Dave, we've talked about leader, protector, provider. So are you going to protect your family? Are you going to take the responsibility? Or are you going to be irresponsible? Are you going to be a spiritual leader in your home? Or are you going to delegate that responsibility to somebody else? That's the effeminacy. God has called us to be the warriors of our house, to be the leaders of our house, to be the defenders of our house. The only way we can do that is if we know what's true and what's not true. Adam allowed Eve to take charge. If you read through Genesis, it is so clear. She was the one that had the conversation with the devil. She was the one that decided that the fruit was good for eating. And so she was the one that gave it to Adam. Adam was the one that had the covenant relationship with God. Adam was the one that had the responsibility to take care of the garden. Adam was the one who was placed in authority over Eve, not Eve over Adam. She was created to be his helpmate. So the curse of effeminacy is potentially what AI could do for some individuals, because we're just going to relegate our hard work. Because effeminacy has to do with avoiding the work, avoiding what needs to be done, avoiding the life that we're called to live. And so it could become a problem for some individuals where, you know what, this is easier. I'm going to cheat when I hand in my work assignment. I'll just type a question into AI and make it produce the report that I need and just pass it off. Well, what's true and what's not true? I don't know. This is what the computer gave me. Okay, that's the curse of effeminacy. You're not doing the hard work. You're not doing what needs to be done. We must be men that are convicted to doing what is right, even when it's hard to do. Men, listen to me. I'm talking to you. Every one of us needs to develop our own home library. We need to start building up collections of actual books. We need to have things that have a sense of permanency to them. This is why the church is not going to allow, or should never allow, the celebration of the Eucharist to be done over a tablet. This is why you cannot go to the sacrament of confession over the telephone. It has to be face to face. The sacraments have been given to us so that we can live spiritually, supernaturally. The sacraments have been given to us so that we could have that divine relationship with God. And God does not want to have some artificial barrier in between us. God wants to meet us face to face. This is the danger of AI for some. For some, it's not going to be used. Like, for example, if somebody has, somebody has a prosthetic leg or a prosthetic arm, and they infuse AI technology, and now you get the dexterity in the fingertips and all. That's great. That's great use of AI. That's great use of technology. Or, you know what? You use AI to incorporate that into an MRI and X-rays and who knows whatever else, and you're able to map the human body and find exactly the path the surgeon needs to follow to get in and to remove the cancerous cells. That's great use of AI. That's wonderful use of AI. Or if you're doing a forensic investigation of some criminal enterprise, and you have a whole bunch of data files and you're looking for irregularities and you use AI in order to search through the files and you find irregularities that now you're able to go in and one by one verify. That's great use of AI. But Dave, man, like you said, those individuals who are going to substitute a human experience between themselves and another person and use AI for counseling, use AI for intimate relations, I'm sorry, but that is a problem. That is going to cause us to be even more separated than we already are. I mean, Dave, I am so blessed, and I got to share this with everybody. When we started doing the podcast, I'm thinking we're going to be like every other podcast. Somebody will find it on YouTube or somebody will find it on Rumble or wherever. But you're the one that shared with me the importance of terrestrial radio. You're the one that shared that with me and how important it is for us to have a presence on AM and FM terrestrial radio. And I took that for granted, but over the past year that we've been together, I have come to really, really appreciate those who are listening to us over terrestrial radio, as well as even some of the internet-based radio stations. Folks that are tuning in live to hear it as it's being broadcasted. That is an element of faith, as opposed to just getting lost into the World Wide Web and just being another element of static.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we get back to dedicating our time. Nobody nowadays, everything is streaming, right? You don't have to plant yourself in front of the TV or plant yourself in front of the radio to hear a particular program. I remember as a little kid, I want to say it was either Friday night or Saturday night. You know what? Write us an email what I'm about to say. How many people remember way, way back in time in the 80s listening to Dr. Demento, and those crazy programs, Frank Zappa music, and they would play it like Friday night at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, Saturday night. And I remember as a kid, tuning in my AM FM radio in my bedroom so that I could hear the show. Nobody does that anymore. Everything is now streaming. But I think it's important for us to stay connected to things that are real.
No doubt about that. Deacon, we got to leave it there.
For those of you that are interested in sending us your thoughts on the show or topics you'd like us to cover, prayer requests, if you want to just say hi, send us an email at throughthefire392@gmail.com. Through the Fire, all one word. Through the Fire 392, all together. It's throughthefire392@gmail.com.
So for Deacon Don Prendergast, I'm David Fortin. See you next week.
The preceding program was the Spirit of Truth Radio Arts original program for CastingThe.net.